The last time Mrs. Borden was seen alive was around 9 o'clock a.m. Now, the last people to see her alive was the maid, Bridget, and her stepdaughter, the infamous Lizzie Borden. Now, at the time of the murder, Lizzie's sister was out of town, and her father, Mr. Borden, and her uncle John were out at Fall River. Now, the story goes that Lizzie had said she was downstairs ironing handkerchiefs. Now, her mother was killed in the upstairs bedroom where her uncle had slept the night before. This is referred to as the John Morse room, or it also goes by the name of the Abby Borden murder room, which, oddly enough, is actually the most requested room to stay in overnight at the historic Lizzie Borden Axe Murder House and Museum. Now, strangely enough, there were no defensive wounds on Mrs. Borden whatsoever. So the theory is that she must have known her attacker and did not feel threatened. Now, there was no evidence whether she was standing, kneeling, facing her attacker, had her back turned, whatever. But the fact is, since there were no defensive wounds, she must have known her attacker and did not feel threatened. Now, the thing was, the old poem says Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks, but that's not exactly what happened. See, the wounds, the first one was on the left side of her head, behind her left ear. Now, the next one was between her shoulder blades that went 4 inches deep. And the remaining 17 were to the back of the head and her neck, with a total of 19. Now, that's a far cry from 40, but it's just as heinous. Now, she was eventually found face down in a pool of her own coagulated blood. Between the blood and the stomach contents of both victims, Mr. and Mrs. Borden, we can put Mrs. Borden's death at 9:30 a.m., which was a clear hour and a half before Mr. Borden's death. Now, in the photo in the dining room where the autopsy was done, you can see a camera that's sitting there, and that camera is the very camera that took the crime scene photos. Now, here's an interesting little fact for you. Did you know that the crime photos taken of the Lizzie Borden crimes and murder were the very first crime scene photos ever taken? Very interesting fact, a little bit of a morbid fun fact for you, but there it is. And there's a lot more to the story than that, but that is a quick rundown. It's a very interesting story, and I do urge you to check it out, because it is not only morbid, but it is fascinating. Thank you.